Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Oh, I see a lot of pumpkins in the feed there. That is festive. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy hump day. Getting my groove on here. Good morning, Kira. Happy coffee time. I'm super looking forward to bingo night, too. It seems like it's been forever. I'm definitely late with bingo night. So I'm super looking forward to it. I'm also super looking forward to the class in Plymouth that I really didn't have time to promote, but it's completely sold out now. So we'll look forward to doing other classes in the future around there, I guess. I'm doing a class in Plymouth. I only mentioned one, so maybe if you meant to go, you'd hopped on that train right away because I didn't think to mention it for a while. It seemed so far away. It's coming up in November, but it's like a beginner class. Trying to make it super inexpensive, so I'm not bringing tons of patterns and spending time making patterns. It's a beginner class where we're using like basic shapes, like thinking about like Edward Frost style of designing, just basic shapes, and then using cookie cutters. And Tara, I saw you did something with a cookie cutter and a witch. I absolutely loved that piece for the door. Fantastic. It's so easy to use cookie cutters for designing. So I figure it'll be a great class for people who are beginners, can just sort of start tracing a cookie cutter and, hit or miss hooking it or punching it. Darks in one place, like either the inside of the cookie cutter or the outside, lights in the opposite. And you got a good composition going just that way. And for people who are more advanced, we'll work more on the composition of it and putting it together a bit better. I'm excited about that. I'm sending out the kits today for the sugar pumpkin class. So if you are taking that, you've got to let me know like within a day or so I can get you the stuff in time. Otherwise, it's recorded. So with this class, you get either a punch or a hook, and you tell me which, and one of the 9 sugar skulls, which are pumpkins. They're not actually skulls. They're pumpkins that are all divided up color-wise. They came out last year, but we're getting around to the class now. And one bag of 9 different yarns, different kinds of fibers, and then one bag that's just filled with strips. So more materials than you could possibly use. But will be a fun class, followed by the Proddy class with a pilgrim hat, I think on November 2nd. I've already sent that piece off to Dana at Madison Wool because she uses it as I'm doing that class live as well, but a Zoom class for us. I already sent that one off. So if you're interested in that, let me know. That's a great Proddy class using a pilgrim's hat as a vase. Those are coming up. There's a lot of classes coming up. The class coming up this weekend, I'm working on now. I'm going to get back to the feed there, but people are going to have, this is going to be in Dennis, so on Cape Cod, Route 6A, Dennis Village, this coming Saturday at, again, Salt Yarn, and people have a choice between hooking or punching. So if people are choosing hooking, then they're going to get this pattern, which is the September pattern from last year, Moonlight Becomes You. I absolutely love this one. I was struggling with how to get, and I dyed all these last night as yarns, because this is all yarn. So not hooking with strips, but hooking with yarn, 3-ply, Briggs & Little. I was struggling with how to get the sort of peppermint eyes, you know, the sort of ring around the eyes without making it too difficult for beginners. And then I remembered I had this. Where is it? Am I sitting on it? Am I sitting under it? I'm sitting over it. I had this yarn, which I completely forgot about, and I don't know what I ever meant to use it for, but it's a nice, soft, almost like a roving feeling yarn. It's going to do a real nice peppermint around the eye. This is called Misty Alpaca with an eye. Right? Thought that was super cute. Good solution to that problem. So hookers this weekend are going to be doing that. And punchers are going to be doing Native Tom because he works so well as a punch. And if you're going to that class and you already have done these patterns of mine, let me know because I'll bring other patterns for you. Of course, there's hundreds of patterns to choose from. These are just the ones that popped into my head that I knew were already selling like crazy. So lots of good classes coming up. It's exciting and busy right now. Linda, go. Everybody's doing pumpkins and leaves. That's how it feels today. Penny, happy Wednesday in beautiful Myrtle Beach. Doreen, hello from upstate New York, sunny temp 68. That is just about perfect, isn't it? Suze, hello in Kansas. Leaves are finally turning. I like all those leaves. My mom just posted the prettiest picture. I should have reposted it in our group, but whenever anything is posted that's not exactly rug hooking, I always get reports, and I usually leave them because unless it's, boobs or something like that, I'm probably going to leave it if it's something that is inspiring. But this one was like a picture she sent. She belongs to so many good groups. There you are, Mom. It was like a woman standing inside a window, and you're just seeing her kind of from the side, back, kind of, so not like a real descriptive face, not a very, sort of an anonymous face, from the side, dressed in kind of warm, bundled up clothes, and sipping a coffee. And right out the window is the main part, the main character in the piece. And right outside the window were all these flat shapes, almost stenciled, of different colored leaves, as if they were blowing, and for that moment they just stuck on the window. And I thought, what a good composition idea that is. That is good, isn't it? I loved that, Mom. Suze went out for a walk. Oh, a bit farther. Oh, boy. Well, at least, I don't like it when you go walking in the woods behind the house, because there's a lot of bears back there. Be careful, Doreen. Oh, y'all saying hi to each other. That's nice, Linda. The weather is so nice. Crystal, good morning from chilly Nova Scotia. Oh, it's chilly there so much of the year, isn't it? But also so beautiful that it makes up for it. Fighting the urge to turn up the heat. I know. Layering with sweaters and Christmas socks. Yep, I know. Because once you turn on the heat, that's kind of it, isn't it? It's the breaking the seal on the beer or whatever. Once you open it, it's there for a while. It's hard. I know. I haven't turned mine on yet either. I'm doing a little bit with layers today. And Halloween shirt. I saw people were buying this Halloween shirt from TeePublic. I love that. Karen, good morning. It's a beautiful day. Good to see you. Barbara, beautiful day. A lot cooler day today. Yeah. For us too, we have that snap. That's the fall snap, isn't it, that everybody talks about. Beverly, good morning. Cloudy day at the beach. Denise, good to see you. You are in sunny Florida again. I sent your yarn out yesterday. You are done with Connecticut. You are ready for the sun, right? Kirsten, happy coffee time. Not a happy coffee time in San Francisco. I saw on Facebook you're having a class. Kirsten says, I saw on Facebook you're having a class on 11/14. Will that be recorded too? Oh, archery. Connor's off to do his archery again. Let's see. Which one is that? The 14th. I ought to know, right? 14th. Oh, tavern signs. Oh, I keep forgetting to mention the Design Like class yes, it is recorded. The Design Like class this month is designing like tavern signs, like a tavern sign painter. And it is going to be, I have completely forgotten about this. It's going to be a super fun, hands-on class where we're looking, we always look at the history of the person we're talking about. In this case, it's many people, right? It's a collective. So I'm looking at antique tavern signs, particularly American ones, right? We're not completely ignoring the British tradition of the pub, right? And they own that tradition. But we're going to look at the sort of naming of pubs, how they've become named over the years, funny ways to name pubs. I have a generator that I look at online, like a funny pub name generator, so we can play with that and come up with some names for pubs, do some drawing exercises. And with this class, I'm going to be sending you tons of stencils, just like the first class, the Designing Like Edward Sands Frost class, tons of stencils, because we're really going to be playing with space and simple placement. So for people who like primitive hooking, very folky, very naive, this is a perfect class to jump in, because we're not designing in the style of a fine artist. We are designing in the style of tavern signs, and that's about as folky as it gets. It applies directly to what we do as rug hookers. And I thought it'd be fun this time of year to do some very sort of traditional designing. So that's a good vehicle for that. And yes, all of the classes are always Zoomed. So it's a private link that only the people who buy the class are seeing. You get sent the link after I record and convert the class, and it's on YouTube as a private link. So people can't just stumble upon it, right? If you're participating in the class, they're not just stumbling upon it and seeing you in your house and you asking questions and me, but it's private. So always a yes to that. And that is going to be a fun class too. Donna, good to see you in Knoxville, Tennessee. Renee, good to see you. California Central Coast. Rena, good to see you. I have a name like that too, that it doesn't look like it's said. So it is always problematic. Deanna with one N is problematic. But I think I've told you before, I was born in the Netherlands, and the Queen was Juliana at the time, so they wouldn't let my dad put two N's in my name because one N was good enough for Queen Juliana. So, not taking into account that for English-speaking people, it's a different name completely. Troubling, but what a pretty name. Catherine, good to see you. You're driving as a passenger to Texas. Oh, how fun is that road trip, huh? How fun is that? Deirdre, good to see you on beautiful PEI, Prince Edward Island. So many Canadians on always. And here's Dave, speaking of which, good morning, everyone. Very gray and wet outside. Umbrellas needed. Oh man, the dance of the umbrellas. That's always, I've yet to come up or find a composition other than in fine art painting that shows the kind of ballet of umbrellas on a rainy day. Because I always think, wouldn't that be a great sort of multiples composition, repeat of something? But it's hard to do. It's tricky to do, isn't it? I keep thinking about that every time there's a wet day and I see people down the sidewalk with a collection of umbrellas. I think, got to figure that out, how to make that work. Um, You'd be Dave David. I bet there are some Dave Davids out there, right? That would be funny. I gave Teddy David for his middle name so that my name was still represented because we are kind of at the end of the Davids, being all girls. And yeah, this Teddy is carrying it as a middle name. Carol, good to see you. Carol, I was just going to write you. I was thinking about that Prati rug of yours. And wondering how much you think it weighs because I really want a great photo of it and I want to create a vignette with it for the book. But I'll write you about that. I was tempted to cross over the wooden bridge into the woodsy paths. Oh, right, going out on the walk this morning. Yeah, I'm always so worried going up. I mean, isn't it crazy? It's if it was like a village walk, I wouldn't worry at all. Although there's bears in your village too, Mom. But in the woods, it's kind of their territory, isn't it? And you are like a giant Slim Jim or something walking by, all snacky. Excited about tavern signs. Me too. Lisa, hello. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm super excited about tavern signs. I am the most excited about tavern signs because I love tavern signs and I love the stories behind them and I love the funny names that they get over the years. Sometimes location names, right? Sometimes named after people. Like when I put out the Elizabethan swatch set, I put out the Shakespeare head as a tavern sign as the free surprise pattern on fiber tape. That was real specific, but reminded me of traveling in England. And I know there's a lot of Anglophiles out there that I thought might like that too. But then you've got the funny tavern signs that are just a mutation or, pardon my French, bastardization of an original word. And then you get the sort of tongue twisters that make no sense. And that category of tavern sign to me is super funny because it also crosses over with the etymology of the word. So interesting, right? So interesting. I'm really looking forward to that class. Let's see what else I have. I've got a couple things I want to show you today. I'm having a bit of a panicky day today. I almost canceled because we got the news last night. We had a good night last night, and some of you have been asking about little old Ted. He went yesterday. I took him over to a new school that became another possibility for us with other kids who have autism. This is my son. And he didn't want to go to a sixth place, right? He didn't want to go to a sixth school in 5 years. But I took him over there, and the other kids in the class are all also on the spectrum, and they happen to all be boys, and they happen to all be big into video games. So this is sounding very good already. And one of them he kind of chanced upon at a playground. The child's name is Chance. So he's already super excited about that. So I'm going to be taking him over tomorrow. They seem like they are really welcoming him with open arms, unlike every other option I've had so far, where they're kind of pushing him back like this, like he's not going to fit in here. They're really like, wow, a very high functioning person on the spectrum, excellent vocabulary, super smart, strong in some areas, weak in others, a perfect fit kind of thing. So say a little prayer for Teddy for tomorrow. When he goes in tomorrow, hopefully everything is good. But I got a message this morning from Joss, who takes tap right below me where the studio is, and there was a you-know-what case there, which of course there are because they're everywhere, and it's super contagious and dangerous still. But nonetheless, I wrote and said, was it a direct case? Was she in direct contact with somebody? And I was hoping the teacher would write back and say, oh no, that person was, comes in on Sunday and she wouldn't have crossed paths with him. Well, it's actually the teacher. So I'm signed. That just choked me up. It got me all nervous again. I'm going to try to get them in for testing later today. So we'll see how that goes. And I know we cross paths all the time and we're still careful. We're wearing our masks. We're doing all of our stuff. But it just, with those kids not being vaccinated still, it upsets me and worries me so much. Because I feel like Colin Powell, right? I mean, it's like, let's not get started. I won't be able to stop. We'll see. Exciting for Teddy. I know that was one good thing. So I'm hoping that testing and everything isn't going to stall that, kind of waiting for results. Yeah. It sounds so promising. And when he was in there yesterday, when he's excited, he tends to show off. And I do too. I mean, it's just the way that I am. Maybe it's more hereditary than it is autistic. But we were in there and he was so interested in the teacher. She's very young and she's very cool and hip. She was a nice person. You could tell she was a sincerely nice person. and he started to kind of break dance, like he was down on the floor like a sick cockroach, like kind of spinning on his back and stuff. And normally, if it were the mall or, I would say, get up off the floor, what are you thinking? But in that situation, I thought she understood that he was so excited, and that's why he was getting very physical, like moonwalking and, just doing things that you don't usually see people doing in public. But it was fun, and it showed me that he was really excited. Which I said to her at this point, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't even care about academics. I know he's smart, and I know it'll be all right in the end. I don't even care about academics. I just want that boy to have one friend in the world. And I want, when December rolls around, and no offense to Gami, who is our number one best love, but for somebody other than Gami, my mom and my sister, to come to his birthday party. Like, wouldn't that be nice for the first time in 10 years to have a friend in the world? So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated. Exciting. Have you heard of the Temple Grandin? Have you heard of Temple Grandin? It's a person. She is on the spectrum, has written several wonderful books. Her latest, Navigating Autism. No, I haven't, Suze. I'll check that out on Amazon. That's a great lead. Let me just take a screenshot of that so I don't forget it. That's a great lead. Thank you so much. I will look her up. And it's like people on the spectrum, as you know, because more and more, when I think about it, and I've said this before, when I was in school, there were people who were different, and schools were inclusive because they didn't even have a sort of name for it yet. And they didn't even have the thought of separating people who were different. But I know there were kids who were on the spectrum in my class, and those were the kids who the nuns were very unhappy with, who were very, they could not focus, they could not sit still, they did not do super well academically, and those were the kids that the nuns would routinely take the signet ring and screw into the head when they weren't doing well, right? Is a replacement for rulers, just this kind of thing. But now we handle things differently, thank God, and we're much more aware. So, yeah. Oh, is she an amazing person, Linda? I'm going to have to check that out. I'm way behind the curve here. She's awesome. Okay, great. Inspiring. Sounds like possible tearjerker action if there's videos, too. How cool is that? All right, that is great. That is great. Go, Teddy. His little wolf pack. I know, right? All the cool guys. And he's kind of excited about there being no girls, And he's so good with girls. Girls love him. I'm going to stop because he's so gentle and just gentle. He's very quiet and gentle. And boys his age tend to be like wild, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs type kids. So he is the absolute opposite. And for that reason, girls his age tend to be attracted to him because he's so calm and quiet and gentle. But it doesn't help him with making friends, right? Because they rarely have a good, solid Team Fortress 2 video game connection going. Sexist remark, there's a lot of girls like his sister who love to play crazy video games, but it's not typical. So we will see what happens. There's lots going on here, but in any case, I won't see you tomorrow. I will see you on Friday for our bingo night, and that'll be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I think we left off yesterday. You know what? My mom and Carol sent me the same link that was fantastic, and I want to backpedal a little bit to where we left off yesterday because we had that tips day, and a bunch of people wrote after and said how fun it was to talk about tips. And I have to say it was fun. I was surprised. It was a nice episode for me because it didn't take any prep, and a lot of things came out that I was really interested in and had never heard. So let's see if we can kind of keep our tips fresh and maybe do a tips episode once a month so that new people who are coming on as well can log on and say, maybe every day I'm not comfortable asking a very specific question, but on tips day I am. Maybe I just cover your tip in the natural sort of routine of things. But it was a great episode. So both my mom and Carol sent this link to this textile conservator because we talked a lot about moths, right? And I hate to say the M word. That's the worst 4-letter word for a rug hooker. But the article came from putthison.com, putthison.com/a museum. And the article is called A Textile Conservator Explains How to Deal with Clothes Moths. That's a bit of a tongue twister. So it looks like that. So I just wanted to backpedal for a minute and read this to you, at least part of it, because this is exactly what we were talking about on the tips episode yesterday. And there were so many good ideas that emerged that it was amazing. But let's hear what this one has to say. So this was written in March of 2019 by Derek Guy, G-U-Y. And he says, if the mere thought of clothes, moths, fluttering out of your closet strikes terror into your heart, imagine if your wardrobe didn't just contain your favorite few tweeds and winter cardigans, but also historical artifacts from centuries ago. Those are the kinds of things that Camille Myers-Breeze and her team they work at the Museum of Textile Services, a full-service textile preservation studio based in Andover, Massachusetts. In the art world, conservators specialize by medium. Some focus on architecture, we know this, oil paintings, and others paper. So, my sister works at Yale, and she focuses on very sort of high-end fine art paintings. We're going to have to do another episode with her soon, and I'm hoping soon we can go to Yale and figure out how to cross it over with our interests. But look at some of the things they're doing over there in conservation. So over her 30 years career, she's helped to conserve 14th century tapestries, historical battle flags, pre-Columbian textiles, tiny embroidered baptismal caps once worn by U.S. presidents, and even ancient Peruvian mummy bundles. She's published extensively on the topic and today teaches classes on textile conservation. So, when I thought about writing something on clothes moths last month, inspired by this scary photo of someone leaving their wardrobe to freeze in a Chicago garage, I decided to talk to somebody who deals with the truly irreplaceable. Breeze, and remember that's her last name, doesn't just treat moth problems, of course, but her work sometimes involves treating an infestation, and she's working with when she's working with a museum or historical center. So there are two types of insects that eat protein-based fibers, like wool. The first is the carpet beetle, which is a tiny round bug, sometimes striped, that's attracted to the warmth of windows. In the Northeast, carpet beetles are so common, many consider them to be part of architectural structures. Okay, this worries me because I can't even picture a beetle, this kind of a beetle. A carpet beetle. I'm going to have to Google that. I can't even picture that. Second, you have clothes moths, which come in two varieties. There's the case-making clothes moth, and then there's the more common webbing clothes moth. With climate change, we're seeing a huge surge, oh boy, in the number of infestations in homes, museums, and historical places. It's a global problem, but especially so in Europe and the U.S. Conditions today are more favorable for insects, blah, blah, blah. The worst news, April is National Hatching Month. Okay, so we're a little ways away from this. We can stabilize and prep before April rolls around. National Hatching Month. Let's not put that on the calendar, though. Here are some suggestions from a museum textile conservator on how to make sure your favorite winter knits and coats will see their way to the next year. Prevention is the best cure. So, best measures are preventative. They include the sort of sensible housekeeping that no one likes to do. When I asked Breeze how often people should be vacuuming their closets, she laughed and said, "How often do you vacuum the back of your closet?" I lie and tell her rarely, even though the answer is never. Okay, fine, the answer is actually never. She says, these pests like places that are dark and lifeless. So at the very least, it helps to frequent your closet with a light source, a vacuum every once in a while, for example, spring cleaning. I think more is better for us with a lot of wool hanging around. She says, while cobwebs keep certain pests at bay, they can be food sources for others. Vacuuming removes those cobwebs, so that's interesting, isn't it? Because the moths are going to be interested in the cobwebs too. Anything you might have tracked inside removes cobwebs, and anything you might have tracked from the outside. So this is vacuuming cobwebs is one I would have never thought of. When the weather starts to warm up, it helps to store your off-season clothes in another location, like locked bins, bags, zip bags, garment bags. She says, first, however, you'll want to wash or dry clean all of the items. This becomes expensive, doesn't it? And I mean, when we're thinking about our wool, I think in general, I liked what we said yesterday about having them in enclosed places. If you're not like in a store situation and you can keep them closed up, that might be the best of all. Tupperware bins. So she's giving all the same kinds of answers that we said yesterday. She's talking about garment bags. It's a long article. And she talks about vintage fabric, which we don't particularly need. But she's basically, I'm just skimming, she's basically doing the same thing that we're doing there. But I think the tip about, oh, what if you spot a clothes moth? One of the problems with clothes moths is that you often don't see an infestation until it's too late. The critters responsible for leaving Swiss cheese holes in your clothes aren't exactly the flying beasts themselves. It's larvae, a stage of the moth before they hatch their wings. Once these tiny worms come out of the eggs, they look for a source of protein to eat before they pupate, turn into a cocoon. Sometimes sometimes you'll find little rice-shaped cocoons they leave behind, so that would be a super bad sign. But more often than not, you just don't. So, in other words, they're so small. You'll just spot the adult moths fluttering around your clothes, and then you're in trouble. She says the first thing to do is to clean and separate your clothes, isolate the things you can machine wash them, put the others into a storage space temporarily, something enclosed, a different location if you can, like garage. Next, dry clean whatever should be dry cleaned. Your clothes may have larvae and eggs you can't see. Cleaning these items is a surefire way to ensure that they will not sort of reintroduce into your home. So, okay. So this is all a little bit of common sense. Once you've dealt with the garments, you'll want to clean the space thoroughly, vacuum your closet, wipe down shelves, spray the area with cedar side. That's a product, cedar side, one word. Cedar oil dries out their carapace. It affects every stage of their development. Okay, so enough with that. But those are really, really good tips. I didn't know that. I think I might take out the vacuum and vacuum the closet today. But helpful, right? So interesting. Thanks for sending that article. It was way more in depth than I even thought possible. But I think we should be taking these crazy preventative measures, even if we are not sort of the stewards of a historical collection, but just a hobby craft closet. We should still try to keep it clear, keep it vacuumed, keep the cobwebs away. So, all right, good info. Now, when we left off yesterday, I said, I want to look at this little book that I found. This was one of the tips I didn't get to yesterday. And this is a common sense tip, but whenever you are out and about and you find these small books like this one, I just took the $2 sticker off of it, and you find these little books like this, quilts, coverlets, hooked rugs, anything, the old Sotheby's catalogs, the Pook and Pook, all of the old auction catalogs, because you will find images in these books that are nowhere else. So for example, for $2, right? For example, this is the collection of Charles Rand Penney, EY, and it even has such a nice inscription on the inside of it. It says, Dear, it looks like Annie or Henri. Charles was a special friend. Charles is the person whose collection this was, for both Dean and myself. He purchased one of our daughter, Christiane's works and donated it to the Rochester Museum of Art. And after his death, it went to the Birchfield Penney Museum. Interesting. See, these books, this is how you track things that are lost, right? You don't know where they are. You don't know where they've gone. But this is a wonderful little introduction to, there's a lot of quilts up front, including whole piece quilts. But I won't show those because they're not directly related to what we talk about. The chapter before, they are gorgeous, but the chapter before is coverlets, right? And I mentioned coverlets the other day when we were talking about, I think we were looking at the Connecticut book and looking at photography of sort of early American homes. And these kinds of coverlets, now this is not a hooked one, this is obviously woven. These coverlets came up, and Tara wrote and said, is this what you mean when you were talking about those expensive coverlets, the wovens, that you still find in country type stores around New England? And they are quite expensive for the bed, for the tablecloths, placemats. And yeah, this is exactly what I meant. And in this chapter, they show a bunch of these coverlets just to tie up that conversation. And in fact, this one looks like it's, okay, it says Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but it looks like woven into the coverlet is like the state capitol building. I don't know if you can see that. It's a tricky one to, yep. Do you see that? Doesn't that look like a state capitol building? It looks very patriotic. That might be, is that Jefferson or something in the corner? Super, super detailed. But that's a power loomed quilt. And then there's a bunch of coverlet, because it's crossed over with bed rugs, remember? Then there's a lot of double cloth coverlets. Now, I know there's some weavers and spinners out there. I don't know what double cloth means. I'm getting an idea just because the name is giving a good clue, but I don't know enough about weaving to understand how that's done. They're showing us a lot of biter wand or biter wand coverlets too. And I did have some knowledge about that. These are the biter one. Let me show you a better one. It's ones that have two widths kind of joined together, from what it sounded like, because way back when in college the first time, so I was like 19, that was 30 years ago, I took a class in Scandinavian weaving, and I think the biterwand or biterwand coverlets come from, I want to say like Germany and I want to say somewhere in Scandinavia, maybe Denmark, something like that. But the idea was that this is just a side note, the right side changes, like alternates, like this kind of thing. You see what I mean? Like from the top you can see the fading, and like there's different rows where it looks like it's right side, back side, right side, back side. So you get this kind of almost ombre color change as you go up. Just a side note, because this did come up in our episode on bed covers, and this whole chapter is these kinds of woven coverlets that we were talking about a little bit. Interesting crossover. So, and then we hit our stride with the last chapter on hooked rugs. And these are, I just want to show you these images because they're beautiful and they should not be lost. So they were all in this collection. This book came out in 1982. So where the collection currently is, I don't know. It's possible that some of these, I don't know if they've been sort of willed to a museum, or if they have been split up and gone to auction. That is the fearful thing, isn't it? Because then they have scattered, properly scattered. And there's some good ones in here, like this one. These are some very dark pictures, but this is a centennial rug, 1776 to 1786. This was done for the Philadelphia Centennial. So this was actually done, this is a 19th century rug. And again, the colors are just bad. It's a very dark photo. But it is a very celebratory rug. You can see they're kind of experimenting with the design of the national seal for the U.S. It's not quite that, but it's got a lot of the, you know, the arrows and the stars. It's got a lot of the signifiers of that. So that was a kind of cool one. And then we've got, now this is his collection. These are the hooked rugs that this man collected. And what's interesting to me about this collection is, as you're going to see, some of them, like that one, are one-of-a-kind, important historical hooked rugs that were used at a specific event, and there are others that appear to me to be commercial patterns. And it just makes me wonder, as a collector, because you know he's got the money to spend on this collection in his lifetime. I'm sure he spent well for the things he liked. He seems to be either the kind of collector who bought things that he liked, and why shouldn't you be that? Everybody should be that kind of collector. Or he was not aware of the distinction between rugs that are commercial patterns and rugs that are not. Because, of course, the ones that are commercial patterns, there's many of those, many and multiple of those. But the ones that are original, those are the ones nowadays that for collectors are super desirable because there's just the one. So I don't know the answer to this about whether it was just a kind of a gap in his knowledge that that the ones that are commercially made patterns are not as valuable or desirable, or if he just bought them because he liked them. But we're going to see some of both. Now this one I'm sure is a commercial pattern of the boat. I feel like I've seen this one a million times and I can't put my finger on it. It's going to be one of the early companies. It could be like an Aunt Lydia, it could be an heirloom, it could even be a Garrett Blue Nose. I'm just not sure, but I know everybody's seen 1,000 Clipper ships, but I feel like I've seen this one a lot. It's still a lovely welcome mat sized pattern. This one too, this one's actually on eBay right now. If you go on there later, somebody is selling this. I had it as a favorite because I don't need it. I have this as a burlap pattern, but somebody is selling this right now, and I feel like it was Dritz, something like that, on burlap, colored, and ready to go. So you can either trace it, or, you know, to save it, or if it looks like it has a ton of integrity and you're not going to put it on the floor, you could try hooking right into it. I would trace it. But that exact pattern is on eBay right now. Floral geometric hooked rugs, maple leaves. So those certainly are not originals. This one I'm just not sure. And I'm going to leave it up to you too. If you feel like you've seen this before, I'm leaning toward I have, but it's done so well, this one, with the flying, what are these, ducks or loons or something. But what I like about this is I like the shape. I like the shapes of the birds, right? Wings up, wings down, smart. But what I really like about it is that little ribbon of the sandy color below them, and then that kind of sandy colored stylized Clary's Cliff type tree, right? That's cool. That works well together. And the fact that that's done in that style, just a few little sort of motifs, it has a bit of a stained glass thing going on, doesn't it? In terms of outlining. And it's just cleverly done. So it makes me second guess the feeling that I've seen this 1,000 times. Also, if you look at the way whoever hooked this put the lighter blue behind the bird's beak that kind of mimics the sort of shadow puppet effect going on, you see, right on the other side of his beak. And that really is the lead bird. The bird with the lighter color head, the bird that's right in the front. That's the one we're looking at. And having that little cloud that mimics the shape of his actual head is really helping that composition hugely. Floral Hooked Rug. And again, this one, I know we've seen this. I know we've seen this many times. Very pretty 1920s, 1930s era rug, not in color, but again, certainly a commercial pattern. I'd love to find out about the ducks with the stump too. Now this has got to be an original pattern. I would bet on this. And I wish, this is the one out of all of them that I wish was in color, right? Because I'd be so curious. It looks like the cats have little wings. Not sure, but it looks like little wings. Yeah, this is the one in terms of interest and value that I would want to see the most in color. But small little bouquet of flowers, big border, big simple border, and two little kitties, right? Really easy, really striking, nice early composition. But for me, that is the important one in all of this. This is another one. I'm pretty sure this is a blue nose. I've seen this a ton. I saw this at an antique store in New Hampshire a few months ago, this exact one, and done almost in the same colors, which makes me wonder if it was ever available as a kit. But real pretty. Again, I love the maple leaves. Very, very pretty. A bit of an elongated, more of a hearth shape, right, than like a rectangular rug. It's a bit stretched. Really lovely rug. Great coloration. Check out the way that they did these leaves here. Perfect memorial for beloved kitties that passed the rainbow bridge. Absolutely. Absolutely. If those were little wings, wouldn't that be great? If these were little wings, I mean, wouldn't that be great? Because this is not, that is not a new rug. It says 19th century. I'm sure without a date on it, they can't date it. But have you seen that meme if you are on Facebook of it's like a cartoon of two dogs sitting at the end of a dock and one of them has wings and the other one is saying to him, they still talk about you every day. And he said, I know. Oh, it's so sad. It reminds me of that. And they might not be wings, but they certainly look like little wings. They certainly look like little wings. That is so sweet, isn't it? And at that time, I think a bit sacrilegious. So that's an interesting thing in itself, because, you know, you get a lot of cupids in the 19th century, but you don't get animals treated in a way that you would be able to say out loud that you believe your animal has a soul, right? If you're like a religious person, it wasn't the kind of sentiment that you would express that your animal had a soul and would be going to heaven or have wings or have any sort of qualities of a saint or an angel. You know, you wouldn't be saying that then. So if those are wings, that would make that rug even more curious, right? Because it's kind of a very new thing that we do, talking about the Rainbow Bridge and talking about our animals, you know, being up in heaven or having a life later with us or seeing them again. That's kind of a new sentiment. But at that time, that would have been considered, I think, quite sacrilegious because they were animals, right? This is a cute one. Unfortunately, the ones that I want to see in color the most are the ones that are not in color. Two cute little, I think, cardinals. They could be anything really without the colors in place. Real pretty. And then this one, give it to you like this. Again, another commercial pattern. And very, very dark. What I like about this is the classic Victorian palette, right? It's almost a shame to see those kind of red roses inside, because red was not as much of a Victorian color as was, if you look at the border, because of course the color mauve was a new color and a huge breakthrough for science and being able to achieve an aniline dye that everybody could use. So seeing that mauve with that dusty blue or teal with that darker mauve / aubergine or eggplant, you know, these were the classic Victorian colors. But then in the middle it looks like somebody's hooked with tweed, which makes a lot of sense. And the red roses, of course. Everybody, you know, everybody wants to do red roses. But I would have loved to have seen those roses in another more Victorian color, like a salmon or one of their middle colors, one of their off-center colors. So those are nice. This is another one that I think is probably an original pattern. Again, 2 kitties. Oh, are there 2 cardinals in your bird bath right now, Mom? Splashing up a storm. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? The universe playing a little joke. So there's 2 kitties over there with a straight old hit or miss background. Very, very simple. And then the, I feel again like the shamrock is, the horseshoes are a blue nose. I'm like 90% sure on them. Oh, they could be bows, Doreen. They could be bows. Of course they're bows. Doreen, you're so smart. Of course they're bows. Yeah, I mean wings. Yeah, I don't think you could show this to anybody if you turned your pets into angels and saints and all that. That is funny. Of course they're bows. They loved their bows on cats. I definitely like wings better, but I think you're right. And by the way, the smell of those moth cakes that I brought in yesterday is really starting to get to me. So I'm not sure about that. That's a jury is out because it's like, whew. And this is another patriotic one. I don't know that I've seen this one the way that it's hooked. It's a very steep welcome mat, unless the picture has been sort of doctored. It's very nice patriotic, but it's a very tall sort of welcome mat, or half moon. And of course, people didn't always use these half moon shaped rugs for their door or, for the ground. Many people use them to put on a half moon table. Because if you think about how often you see the half moon or half circle tables at antique stores, it's like, always. So people would often hook a rug that was specifically going to fit that table, to put all of their vignette with all of their knickknacks on, right? All their bric-a-brac. This is a nice one too. Floral Hooked Rug, rag on canvas, brown ground, surrounded by 19th century. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about 19th century for this one. I would question that a little bit. I have to say I haven't seen this particular design, but it's a bit confusing because they seem to be daffies, right? But they're done in wacky colors, which I love. I'm always one for not doing it in the true color. That could go in any direction. That is some lovely hooking. Let me bring you back in. See if I can get you up. So you've got some good vertical hooking going in the middle ground there. Very graphic, right? Very graphic. This is why I always say if you are not a realist and you do not want to do realistic rugs, you don't want to get involved with shading and all that, think about working in this style, which is much more of a Tiffany glass type style outlining. You're still going to get great shadows, great accents, various colors. It's still going to be wonderful. I detect a theme coming up here. Here's another pair of cats, 20th century. I don't know about this one. Do you feel like you've seen this one before? And now I'm starting to wonder if the ones that look familiar, I hope they don't look familiar because I've seen them in auction catalogs. Because that would mean that this collection is broken up. I don't see this as a commercial pattern, to be honest, because it's not that great. I mean, it is as a piece of folk art, but as a design at this time, wouldn't you think people would want more of a border and a little bit more happening? This looks like a piece of cut paper to me that's been transferred, like somebody cut it out of the newspaper and flip-flopped it. That looks more like what this would be, I think. If we ever have the technology, and I have asked my sister about this, where you could actually x-ray a hooked rug and see what was drawn onto it, that would be extremely useful. The technology is not there right now. It is for painting, but a hooked rug, even with a low pile, my sister said is much too thick to put into this machine. They would need to really have it be flat to be able to take a photograph of what's underneath it. But who knows what the future will bring, right? I'd love to look at things like this. See what the photograph is on the canvas under the loops. And this is the one I used for our thumbnail today. Pictorial hook rug, hearth scene, 20th century. And I know I've seen this one too because I've seen this on eBay lots. And I keep saying to myself, I want to get this. Next time I see it, I'm going to get it, unless you beat me to it. Because I feel like this is one of those, I love the symmetry of it. I feel like this is one of those rug designs, one of these patterns that you could really customize. For example, I would love to put something else over the mantle. I like the 2 little candles. I'd like to see a little ring around the candle, 1980s style, colorful little ring around the candle of light. I'd like to see something different above the mantle, maybe a small hooked rug done in a tiny, tiny cut. And I'd like to see something on the floor, like a braided rug or something colorful on the floor. I like the chairs. I like them being empty, right? It's a nice, nice composition. I wouldn't mind seeing stockings at the fire or a pet on the floor, but there's so many ways that you could customize this very simple pattern. Of course, you could just draw it, right? The chimney with two chairs, two identical chairs. But I've always liked that one. It's very charming and simple. I feel, again, like that's a Dritz or Aunt Lydia, that kind of a thing, right? That kind of a thing. And since they're not saying, it shows that they don't, whoever put this book together doesn't know that these are commercial patterns. Certainly this one too, Pictorial Hooked Rug. This has a magenta border. So this is a black and white Scotty with a magenta border. I love the movement on that tail. Isn't that great? This has got a lot going for it. There's that bow. I like the very graphic shape of the Scotty, and that was our first dog, a Scott Terrier. Loved little old Candace. But I love the motion of the tail and the little bit of fluff on the belly, right? Very graphic, remains graphic, but still adds a lot, putting just a few little lines of stitches in here and there for movement. That is a big bow. And I like the corners on this. It's really different. It's a very clean looking rug, isn't it? Because I would assume that this was a rug for the floor, and it is remarkably clean, remarkably neat hooking. Very simple. Now this one is gorgeous, and this has got to be, you know, if it's not a McGowan, it's something from that exact era. Floral Hooked Rug, rag on burlap. That doesn't really help, does it? Central flower, 19th century. I don't know about the 19th century part. I suppose it could. It could be a frost pattern, right? This could easily be a frost pattern. Him and his scrolls, right? That could be something to check. If any of you have a frost book and you feel like checking, I don't think I have the time to check today. But that would be a curious one to know. That is, I'm leaning toward frost now because of that heavy border. And can you see how let me bring in a little bit closer. Can you see how there's a lot of vertical lines in there? Now, isn't that a cool way to handle a background? They've got a lot of stripy hit or miss going in the scrolls. Very traditional handling of the flowers, right? To me, that's the part that's the least interesting. But I love the way that they've worked the scrolls, and I love that background. It almost looks like tortoise, but in red, because they've put in some darker shades of red and maroon, but those stripies, right, all those like tigery stripy things going down, that really makes it interesting, doesn't it? It gives a lot to that composition, because normally this kind of a composition, to be honest, wouldn't do anything for me. But seeing the way that they've handled those scrolls with all of that hit or miss color, and then having that vertical sort of drizzle of rain, like animal print coming down, super interesting. Game changer. It's like the confetti backgrounds that we've looked at, right? Little stripes here and there, but this just constant drizzle. Interesting. Definitely helping the design along. So, you know, when you do get, and we've talked about this for sure, when you do get a rug that is a snoozer, right? Somebody gives it to you, or you see it at a store and you can't pass it up because you're a hooker and you just got to pick it up just for that one reason alone. And you bring it home and you think, what do I want with this composition of flowers in the center? I've been there, done this, wore the t-shirt. Well, you can think about these things that we talk about from time to time, doing a confetti background, doing the Mackenzie Childs background, right, with the checkerboard. We talked about that last year, dropping in like a very graphic black and white background behind a Pearl McGowan type composition, or something like this, with this almost tortoisey but in red, maybe more like leather background. Do the background first, right? Do it in whatever color you mean to do it. It could be crazier than the red, if you like that, or very pale, right? It could be white with a lot of movement in the background. And then decide what color to do your flowers, because you've got a very contemporary composition if you don't handle it in the way that people handled it 100 years ago. If you're going to handle yours in a different way, same drawing, different treatment of it, you're going to have a completely different piece with totally different energy, right? So never let those old patterns go to waste. There'll always be ways to get rid of this iced tea before we have a computer thing. And I know you all know this pattern. Beloved pattern, 3 bears, right? Beloved pattern. One of these days I've just got to get, it's going to take some scrambling, but I've got to get a whole episode on the 3 bears so we can just look at example after example. And I've seen some examples, and I've seen some recently, but they're always overpriced and in very bad condition. So that's always worrying. I know there's one in New Bedford at the Antique Center there. And it's like over $100, so I haven't picked it up because it's not even well done. but it falls more and more apart every time I go. There's like more scrappies on the floor. It just looks worse and worse. It's like a search and rescue job at this point. Three Bears is your favorite, Kira. I know, and I have it for you, as you know. And then this one, this could be. I wonder if this is the blue. I don't think this is the blue nose, right? That's not enough of a composition for that to actually be the blue nose, the Garrett pattern. Although this is the Garrett pattern, the Three Bears, I wonder. Someone had one listed locally for over $1,000 and you just couldn't do it. That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, unless the colors were like amazingly good, but that's just not the value of that rug at this point. It's the thing about it that makes it special, as you know, is like the blue nose and the Three Bears. Those are the two Garrett patterns. Those are the two that outsold every other one by like so many times over. So in that regard, it means there's more of them out there, but it also gives them that kind of weird prestige. Like that's one of the two that were super important patterns historically to people who are collectors and interested in the history of rug hooking. It's almost like you gotta have that one. But that's a lot of money, you know, and I'm not always sure the people who price these things, I'm thinking they typically don't know all of the little details about these patterns that we know, and they're just pulling a price out of their armpit, you know, and, you know, hoping it sticks. So, and things that come out of your armpit often stick, right? What doesn't stick is this like apple blossom deodorant I have on. Cannot recommend. It's not working at all. It is not sticking. It's not working. The fact that it's apple blossom and green tea, I should have known that, right? I should have known that. It sounded too good to be true. But I don't think that this is the blue nose. I feel like the blue nose is, the scope is pulled way out. You get a lot more water, and I feel like it says blue nose on the bottom of it. I might be wrong, but I think that's a boat. And again, they're saying 19th, early 20th century. I don't know. I think well into 20th century. Now this one would have fit great into our episode 2 Fridays ago when we did our cozy house episode. Yep, it was definitely not an armpit price. No, definitely an armpit price. Pulled it out. Right, $1,000. That's so much. That's so much. And for a very unique hooked rug, that's the right price. You know, and up. But unless it's in perfect condition and it's absolutely beautifully hooked, that it would be on the high side in anybody's book, right? Absolutely anybody's book. So this is pictorial. This is definitely a commercial pattern, and again, not sure whose, but this fits into that category of houses that we looked at. Stand up. Almost has that sort of Grenfell look, right? Because of the outlining, I don't think it is. It looks too much like a kind of New England woodsy cottage, like this smoke coming out of the chimney. Very cute, very limited palette. Gives you the true impression they were working with scraps or doing a little bit of dabbling and dyeing, right? Simple border. But it would be nice to see one like that closer up. And that one has a lot of bleeding. Remember yesterday we were talking about the amount of bleeding you can get, particularly with your reds. Let me see if you can see. It's probably hard to, yeah, you're not really seeing. But around those reds, there's quite a bit of bleeding. This one here, right up into the tree. The light's not good enough, but there's a real cast of pink on it. It's a real severe cast of pink. And then we're getting to the end here. This is a beautiful floral hooked rug, rag on burlap. They like to say rag on burlap, 19th century. I don't know, this really speaks to the tulip mania craze, but that was a lot earlier. But lots of tulips in this rug. I often see people posting, does anybody have a tulip rug design? I have a tulip rug design, not one like this. This is quite good. This is quite good. See, when I see a rug like this, I have to say, it makes me think it is a rug. Because as a wall piece, that huge empty hole in the middle, for me, is problematic, right? I love the way that these tulips look. I can tell already they look like they're hooked, like they're silk screens, right? Like a silk screen painting with a just blob of color in the center. But for me, that center, I would rather see a boxed out center with like a skyline of Amsterdam or something like that, even in silhouette, just something, anything, or pet, or even a year. But when it's a rug, this is what it is. The border is the story in this case. Usually the center is the story and the border is an afterthought. With this rug, the border is the story. All those beautiful tulips and the center is the afterthought. Yeah, I know. We're all thinking about what that rug looked like now, right? That was it. So nice collection of rugs, right? Really nice collection of rugs. Charles Rand Penney, Penny. That 1982. That definitely deserves, it's a self-published little book that definitely deserves further research. There were some nice rugs in there, and the two that I really would have loved to have seen in color were the two that weren't in color, which is a bummer, right? But interesting indeed. So, I'll be with you on Friday for our cocktail night, and I'm thinking next week, I was looking at, in bed last night, dozing, I was looking at that very hard to find and rare book called Hooked on the Hill. I feel like the store that they're referring to, I feel like it's in Georgia. I want to say Athens, Athens. I want to say Athens, Georgia. I think I was reading it yesterday. That's why it's kind of in there. But it's a beautiful book. It's a very personal book. I forget the author's name because it's still on the bedside table. But Hooked on the Hill, I think it's called. And I know a lot of people write and say, do I have an extra copy of this book? No, I got one copy of this book, and it was very hard to come by. And if I ever see another copy, I will grab it and certainly resell it for the same price I bought it for, because it is fantastic. It's a super cozy book. And I didn't want to rush it. I was thinking about changing to that today, but I don't want to rush it. So why don't we start out on Monday looking at Hooked on the Hill, this beautiful book of rugs by the author and I think some friends. It's a lot of storytelling in that book. Really whimsical original compositions. You are just going to love it. So we'll start the week by looking at that and see how it goes. And then the following week, I'm probably going to do a big focus on the periodical that is not out anymore that was called the Wall Street Journal. Clever name, right? Really nice articles and examples of hooked rugs, people, lots of name dropping. We can draw lots of conclusions and fill up some of our gaps in our chronology in terms of makers and patterns. So this coming week, Hooked on the Hill. The following week, Wall Street Journal. So that'll keep us busy for a good long while, I think. And again, don't forget to get your bingo tickets. Don't forget to sign up for Pride Pilgrim hat. That's still available. The class on Saturday on Cape Cod is still available. Plymouth class is closed. And if you want to do the pumpkin class with me, the sugar skull pumpkins, please get the order in today or tomorrow. It's over a week away, and the estimated shipping date is 3 days. So it should still be fine. But if you think you want to do it, even if you're watching it later, get the order in sooner rather than later, because I have all the kits out right now, and I'd like to transition and move on to some other stuff. I will see you all soon. I'll see you on Friday. Have a great Nancy Butts Thompson. Yes, Linda. That's her. Absolutely. And I don't know anything about her, so my goal is to write to her before next week and let her know that I'm covering this book in case she wants to tune in and chime in, add to our sort of thread. Bingo. Yep. So anyway, we will be looking at that next week, and I'm super excited for that. I've got a lot going on. And remember, if you've got rugs, particularly rugs that are done in an unusual style, locker hooking, felting, crocheted, knitted, other than hooked or punched, something like an unusual, I think I'm pretty good for Prati. I think I'm pretty good for Quilly. But a different kind of rug, non-traditional sort of made rug. I'm looking for those Penney rugs, applique rugs, things like that, images of those. So if you feel like you have those, if you would like to send them to me, I would look at them with the possibility of filling in gaps for the book that I'm working on. And of course, always giving you huge credit. And even if you have your store, giving your store huge credit or your brand or whatever. So I'm looking for all of those pieces right now pretty frantically. So, oh, thank you, Penny. Thumbs up. I will see you on Friday, and we will have our bingo night. I'll see you then.